I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on subject verb agreement. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, all right. So this is subject verb agreement. So we said that we are on aplusstudents.ca, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the subject of language arts, grade 8, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the subject verb agreement. All right, so subject or chapter is subject verb agreement. Our subject is English language arts. Grade 8, which is advanced writing. And our lessons that we are doing today is to use the correct verb with compound subject, and to correct errors with subject verb agreement. All right. So we are doing subject verb agreement, right? And when it comes to subject verb agreements, right? We need to use the correct verb with a compound subject. So compound subject is made up of two subjects, right? That is joined by a conjunction, which is and, or no, right? For example, Mark and Amanda, that is a compound subject. It's like two subjects, right? It's two subjects, which is Mark and Amanda, or it can be Jenny and Jane, right? But it's basically two subjects. That's a compound subject. So compound subject, it is made up of two subjects that is joined by a conjunction, which is and or no. For example, Mark and Amanda, or you can say this week or next, neither Josh nor my friends. Those are examples of compound subjects. And when a compound subject is joined by the word and, right? Then we need to use a plural verb. And plural verbs, it usually ends with s, es, or it ends with ies. All right. And if we look at our compound subject that is joined by and, right? Then it says, where do Mark and Amanda go to school? So the word and is over there to join that two compound subjects, Mark and Amanda. All right, so we can say Mark and Amanda. That is a compound subject. It has two subjects, right? And when a compound subject is joined by the word or the subject is joined by the word nor, then we need to use a verb that agrees with the subject that is closest to the verb. So if the compound subject is joined by the word or nor, then we need to use a verb that agrees with the subject that is closest to the verb. And if the subject is closest to the verb, and if the subject closest to the verb is singular, then we use a singular verb. And singular verbs, they end in s, es, or ies. An example of that is this week or next seems likely to be hectic. This week or next seems likely to be hectic. And if the subject closest to the verb is plural, we use a plural verb. Again, plural verbs usually do not end in s, es, or ies. All right. And here it says, if the subject closest to the verb is plural, we use a plural verb, right? It refers to more than one action. And a plural verb, it does not end with s, es, or ies. For example, after reading the reviews, neither Josh nor my friends expect the movie to be successful. All right. So if we look at our activity, right, it says in Mr. Hancock's beautiful old house, small statues and porcelain vases and shelves of the living room and den. We need to choose the correct verb to best complete that sentence. And we're going to use the verb by adding the verb in here. We need to add a verb over there. So Mr. Hancock's beautiful old house, small statues and porcelain vases, the shelves of the living room and den. So we need to fill in a verb over there. All right, so we can say in Mr. Hancock's beautiful old house, small statues and porcelain vases fill the shelves of the living room and den, right? So it fills up the place, right? Makes the place beautiful and full. So full is correct. So the best verb in within that sentence is full. On rainy days, Mitchell and his friends to invent new board games. We need to add the specific verb within that sentence. All right. So it says on rainy days, Mitchell and his friends to invent new board games. All right. So we're going to have to add our verb over here, the best verb. And if we were to choose the correct verb, we would say that they like to invent new board games. Like is our specific or our best verb to complete that sentence. All right. So we basically had to add the base verb to complete that specific sentence, right? Let's do one more. All right. The award winning author and his editor, right? To audiences of writers and students every week. If you go out to universities or to corporates, right? Then it means that you're going to have to speak to the audience. So that is what we need to do. Speak is a word that is over here. So speak. So the award-winning author and his editors speak to audience of writers and students every week. All right. Now we're going on to our test, right? Where we are going to use the correct verb with compound sentence or compound subjects. The award-winning author and his editor, do we say, speaks to audiences of writers and students every week? Or we just say speak to audiences and writes? All right. So do we say the award winner, he speaks to the editors, and his editor speaks to audiences, or they speak to audiences? We need to choose the correct one. All right. So if we choose the correct one, we can say that the award winning author and his editor, they speak to the audiences of writers and students every week. So speak is correct. In Mr. Griffith's beautiful old house. All right, so we must complete the sentence with the base verb. It says, in Mr. Griffith's beautiful old house, small statues and porcelain vases, do we say, fills the shelves of the living room and den, or full? All right, so we can say it fills the shelves of the living. Oh, it full the shelves. So it's in Mr. Griffin's beautiful. So full, not fulls, right? All right. On rainy days, Daryl and his friends, do we say, like to invent new board games or likes to invent new board games? All right, so we can say on rainy days, Darrell, or is it Daryl or Darrell, and his friends like to invent new board games, and that is to keep them busy. All right, so depending on which of my relatives you ask, either Aunt Leah or Uncle Peter, do we say bake the best rhubarb pie or bakes the best rhubarb pie? So we need to choose between bake or bakes. All right, so we can say depending on which of my relatives you ask, either Aunt Leah or Uncle Peter. So either Aunt Leah or Uncle Peter, right? Bake the best rhubarb pie. Do we say bake or bakes? Ah, so they bake, so it's bakes because it's either one, right? Bakes the best rhubarb pie. So bakes is correct. All right, so now we're going to correct errors with subject verb agreement, right? And a subject and a verb, the subject and the verb within a sentence or clause, it must agree in numbers, right? So when a subject is singular, we use a singular verb. And a singular verb, it ends with S. For example, Sarah visits her grandmother. Brian teaches art history. And when a subject is plural, we use a plural verb, and plural verbs do not end with S, right? So it does not end with an S at all. For example, Kylie and Jesse, it's plural, right? They walk home, not walks home, they walk home. Those brownies refers to more than one brownie. So those brownies smell delicious, right? So those brownies smell delicious. All right. Then we say a subject verb agreement, it's usually determined by the simple subject. Remember that the simple subject and the verb, they aren't always adjacent, they aren't always aligned, right? For example, the excitement of the fans is palpable. So the excitement of the fans is palpable. All right. So we now need to choose the correct subject verb agreement, right? And we say that the subject and the verb, they need to agree with one another. So if the subject is plural, and then it means that we need to answer it based with the plural verb, but it does not end with s or es. Whereas if the subject is verb, right? And then when the subject is singular, sorry, and then it means that we use a singular verb, and it means that we usually, our singular verb, it ends with S, right? So we would say Sarah visits, Brian teaches, right? All right. So now we're going to correct the errors with a subject verb agreement, right? And remember, we said that if it is a singular subject, right, and then it needs to be in a line with the singular verb, and then it ends with an S, our verb ends with an S. But if it is, let's say, a plural subject, right, and then it needs to be in line with the plural verb and it does not end with a S. All right, Mr. Perry is trying to concentrate on his yard work, but a swarm of bees keep distracting him. So do we say Mr. Perry is trying to concentrate on his yard work? Do we say the swarm of bees it keep attracting or keeps attracting him? So keep or keeps. Keep or keeps. Since it is a singular subject. All right, and since we have a singular subject, we're going to say Mr. Perry is trying to concentrate on his work, but a swarm of bees keeps distracting him, right? Because we said that a singular subject and a singular verb, and it ends with an S. The students elected to lead our school beautification committee has several inspiring ideas, including a mural in the gym and the relocation of the garbage cans from nearby the school entrance to behind the cafeteria. So now we need to say they have or has several inspiring ideas. So the students, right? So we can say that they have inspiring ideas. All right. Taiwan's tea production date back to the early 18th century. The country is now known for its oolong black and green teas. All right, so we can say Taiwan's tea production, it dates back to the early 18th century. The country is now known for its oolong, oolong black and green tea. So dates is our correct answer. All right, so if we need to correct the error or find the error, then we can say you may be familiar with origami, the Japanese art of paper folding. But did you know that there are a variation called kirigami, which involves both folding and cutting. All right, so we said you may be familiar with origami, the Japanese art of paper folding, but did you know that there is a variation called kirigami, which involves both folding and cutting, right? Folding and cutting. That's kirigami. When you inhale a diaphragm, when you inhale, the diaphragm, a muscle beneath the lungs, flatten out to make way for the air entering your lungs. All right, so we can say when you inhale, sorry, the diaphragm, a muscle beneath the lungs, it flattens out to make way for the air entering your lungs, right? All right, so now we're going to correct the indefinite pronoun verb agreement. The indefinite pronoun verb agreement. So we need to say in George. Okay, so first it says the subject and the verb within the sentence or clause must agree in numbers, right? We say that if we use a singular verb for most indefinite in verbs, which includes each, either, neither, one, everyone, everybody, everything, anyone, anybody, anything, someone, somebody, something, no one, nobody, and nothing. All right. So everyone, for example, generally leaves the office around 6 o'clock. And we say an example, nothing in this kitchen works properly, right? That is when we either use one of those indefinite pronouns, when we use a singular verb, right? And when we use a plural verb for the indefinite pronoun, right? Both, few, many, others, and several are being used. I have tried many red velvet cupcakes, but few taste as delicious as Kathy's. These plums are almost ripe. In fact, several look ready to eat now. All right, so we said that a subject and a verb within a sentence or clause, it must agree in number. And once again, when we use a singular verb for most indefinite pronouns, right? Then with a singular verb, it ends with an S. And then if we use a plural verb, right, it does not end with an S, right? And it needs to agree in numbers. In George Orwell's novel 1984, everyone. All right, so we can say it exists in a totalitarian society. Many Mongolians in yurts, sturdy tents made from a lattice of wood and covered in felt, but some reside in less traditional dwellings. All right, so we must say, so many Mongolians, right? We can say they reside in less traditional dwellings. So reside, not resides, reside. All right, so we can say call and response is a technique that musicians use with each other or with audience, right? A musician calls out a phrase or sound, then everyone responds by repeating it. So we can say they responds, right, by repeating it. And response is correct. Although members of the two major political parties disagree on many key issues, everybody agree that Congress should spend less time bickering and more time getting work done. All right. So we can say although members of the two major political parties disagree on many key issues, everybody agrees that Congress should spend less time bickering and more time getting work done. Right? So agrees is correct. All right, so zero waste is a philosophy in which consumption, do we say consumptions are reduced or is reduced, recycling is increased, and practically nothing are wasted. All right, so we can say zero waste is a philosophy. Zero waste is a philosophy in which consumption is reduced, recycling is increased, and practically nothing is wasted. Right? So is correct. All right, many tourists on the Hawaiian island on OU flock to the world class beaches, but few who visit the island knows about the haiku stays, thousands of steel steps that lead to one of the island's most impressive vistas. All right. So we can say many tourists on the Hawaiian island of Oahu flock to the world class beaches, but few who visit the island they know about the haiku stays. So they know about the haiku stays. Thousands of steel steps that lead to one of the island's most impressive vistas, right? And remember they said that if we have a singular subject, right, then a singular subject aligns with a singular verb, and then our sentence will then our verb will have or a verb will end with an s, right? But if it has a plural subject and a plural verb, and then it does not end with an s, right? All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on subject verb agreement, right? It's where the verb needs to agree with the subject, and I made an example of the a singular subject as well as a singular verb, or as well as a plural singular subject and a singular verb, plural subject and a plural verb, right? Where we said that the singular subject needs to agree with the singular verb and it ends with an S, and the plural subject needs to align or agree with this plural verb and it does not end with and S, right? All right, so this is the end of our lesson, grade 8. Thank you very much for joining. You should have a good evening further. Goodbye.